Well, hello, everyone. I'm Kirsten D Samuel, Betrayal Recovery Coach with Aftershock Recovery Method. And today I'm introducing you to a new friend of mine. Her name is Niki Weiss. She is the founder of Endevo, which is a company. I'm going to have her tell you more about it. She's a digital thanatologist. And when we first met, I had to ask her what that meant. So the reason I'm bringing her on today is she has some great information related to when you are in betrayal trauma, when you are in crisis. What are some things that you need to consider about your digital assets? And I never considered this, which is why I want you to meet Niki. So Niki, welcome. And why don't you tell us what you do and why you do it?
Well, Kristen, thank you so much for inviting me to this enlightening conversation. So, as a thanatologist, is the study of death and dying. People aren't very familiar with it, but if you go back to, I don't know, fourth or fifth grade, I'm sure you've read some books about Thano, right? And thanatologists, we support people in those conversations around death and dying. So my why, my big why, I have my parents behind me. My parents, they passed away before they were both 50.
Oh, wow.
Of cancer, 10 years apart. But that, as a young child, kind of introduced at a very young age that a jarring experience, which always changes us, right? Trauma
Right.
changes who we are today.
Right.
And for us, who have a deep faith, it ends up being our superpower. And for me, having my parents pass led me into the first part of my career was as a hospice clinician. So I'm very comfortable, sitting bedside with people in their most vulnerable time of their life. But usually when we're feeling most vulnerable is when we're most connected to higher power and source.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have found that yourself.
Right. Yeah.
That's the work we're doing. So it's a calling for sure. Where the digital piece came in, that's the unique piece that not many people have been able to step into. But we are now entering into what we call the fourth industrial revolution, right? And it is that digital age where who we are and technology is starting to merge together. I mean, we might not, it's pervasive. We might not realize how much technology has changed our lives. But for me, as a thanatologist and having worked in hospice for the last 30 plus years, I see it where it is our phones and technology that has now become our second or our appendage of and dependency.
Right.
So think about your digital footprint. The fact that you and I are having this conversation now becomes a digital asset.
So as you talk about the digital assets and this digital thanatology, I can just hear the questions that are going on in my audience right now. Well, what does this have to do with us? But as you just brought it up, that was a beautiful segue into the whole digital footprint. Whether we want it or not, we are all out there. I was going through a coaching training session, and the trainers, it was all about the different generations and the digital space now and how that's affecting coaching, how it's affecting all aspects of our life, as you said, because this thing is more powerful than the computer I started learning on. So how does your digital thanatology, how you help people prepare for end of life, how does that assist someone who is now in a very traumatic, very difficult space, but it's related to betrayal trauma from someone that they have entrusted their lives to share? How does this come alongside them?
Well, so it's about the planning stage, right? So the fact that you're in trauma already is going to affect how we make decisions, right? We're just not going to think clearly. It's just the way we're designed. So to be able to start having this conversation before the trauma hits is best case scenario. So my goal is to be able to start sharing with your audience signs and symptoms, and either if you're in the trauma, how to either minimize it as a risk professional. I try to talk about risk mitigation. So if you're in it, how do we kind of navigate through it to get you to the other side? Or if there's an opportunity to prevent it, to avoid it, then let's have those conversations as well, because there are best practices that we can do in planning. And part of that planning is most of what we do, or most of what I do, is about communication. How are we communicating? So the fact that as a thanatologist, I specialize in death, dying, and incapacitation. To me, your audience is dealing with there's a death concept here, right? It might be the death of the trust that was built between husband and wife. It might be a death of the actual relationship, right? That maybe it can't be rebuilt. But there is a renewal opportunity, right? I mean, if you look back at some of the resurgence of the dead context, the verbiage that's in, 1 Corinthians, the Bible does talk about, so is the resurgence of dead, right? Where the bodies of the believers will be transformed into the glorified bodies. So I want to inspire people to say that death doesn't mean the end, whether it's a physical death, a digital death, right? Or it's just a resurgence. And to find the strength within your belief, with eyes opened, right? Because this new technological age, it's a new skill set.
It is.
And I have to say, so if I take a step back, I want to ask your listeners, right? The fact that this is a technological conversation we're having, I want to empower people to, if you're not comfortable with technology, what can you do to get more comfortable with technology? Because in order to identify, and the reason there's an intersection between the pornography and technology, right? I mean, you remember Kirsten,
Yeah.
Kirsten 30 years ago, when the internet first came to play, everyone's like, oh, the internet 30 years ago, it's only going to provide porn and nefarious activities. It does, but it also provides educational opportunity. It provides empowerment, right? So it's good and bad. So we're back to AI technology, our phones. This technology is not going away. It's only going to increase, and the accessibility. So I think that the conversation we really have to have is pornography and the intersection with technology.
Yeah, I love that. And I know in the information that you sent me, you talked about how important it is to establish digital boundaries. So can you expound on what does that mean within a marriage, within a home? What would be digital boundaries? What does that mean?
When I think of digital boundaries, I think of ground rules. I think of trust, transparency. I mean, those to me are those boundaries. I am going into partnership with you, and in return, I am trusting. I'm not surveilling. I am not micromanaging. I am entrusting that you will take care of me as I trust you. So those boundaries, those ground rules, for my husband and I, we have a conversation. Like, we have a home computer that's in the kitchen, and that all of our social media, all our bank accounts, everything is accessible to each of us at any time. Now, does that mean that I'm going through his emails and that I'm watching every conversation and text? No, because I trust him as though now I am the manager of my family finances, just as he trusts me. However, that's not always the case. So it's being able to create those those boundaries are determined based on conversation. And I always want to say, don't assume, because if you look, we're here, you and I are having this conversation because there is a trust issue amongst your audience, right? This is probably the core wound that they're struggling with right now, that the trust has been broken.
Yes.
But they also have faith that it can either be rebuilt, whether with their current partner or them as an individual, to rebuild themselves in order to find a deeper faith in God.
And it's so true. I mean, when my husband and I were going in the initial stages, one of the things that became very critical, and of course, our children, we had done this with our children. We first brought a home computer into our situation. It was in the kitchen. It was in the middle, and we had an open concept main floor. So everybody could see what everybody else was doing. And it, like you said, it wasn't so that I could be looking over your shoulder. It took away that sense of secrecy. It took away that sense of I'm hiding something from you. You talked about financial, even bank accounts, those kinds of things. I know that in my parents' generation, your parents' generation, it was really common that usually the wife, not always, but usually the wife had no idea about bank accounts, how to access anything. And now in our current economy, in our current environment with the digital age,
it's a digital economy.
Let's
just call it what it is. It's a digital economy, and it depends, what the age group is of your listeners. And the tables are turned a little bit, right? Because more women, because we're working, that we are starting to have a level of, it depends, right? If you're a stay-at-home mom versus, a working, outside the home working mother, but it's more complicated. It's more complicated in a way that it's just a different way of thinking. It is not the bookkeeping that our parents did, right?
No,
I mean,
it is not.
I remember my mother sitting at the dining room table with stacks of and she would sit there and handwrite her checks.
Yes.
So the complexity now is there's a level of here's the conversation I want to have with somebody. How do you feel when your phone gives you a notification that it's going to be updated? Do you feel like dread and anxiety when your phone is or do you miss your flip phone?
Mm-hmm.
If you miss your flip phone and you get anxious or annoyed because your phone is about to give you an update, I can refer you to a tech therapist, and they do exist.
Yes.
But here's the challenge, is when the wife is not so tech comfortable, they're tech timid, and the husband is an IT guy.
Right.
There's inequity there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where there might be a conversation to be had with the woman to say oh, you are at a disadvantage, and that we want to support you in either getting more comfortable with technology and being able to navigate through these waters, because otherwise your partner is going to be doing circles around you.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I recommend to almost all of my clients, because I use it myself as part of the recovery process, is to put the software like Covenant Eyes on anything that can access the internet, is what I tell them. If it can log into the internet, you want to put this on there. What this does is monitors what you're doing. But like I tell them, it is not going to prevent someone from going where you don't want them to go. But what it's going to do is track it. It's a tracking software, and it opens conversations. But I have women who say, well, I put it on there and my husband agreed to put it on there, but he or my son or one of my kids can get around it because they're tech savvy. And I said, that's okay, because what it's doing is it's tracking. Its purpose isn't to block. Its purpose is to track. Years ago, there were, and there still are programs you can put on that will block. But what we're trying to do is open, like you said, it's the conversation that we need to have. So let's talk about what are the kinds of digital assets that a woman needs to be aware of. How does she have those conversations with her partner?
So social media is definitely one, right? The phone is a huge one, and we could talk about that. And then the third one I want to talk about are subscriptions. Social media. So a lot of the people who struggle with porn do have easy access to them, and they create pseudo accounts, right? So there's a lot of social media platforms that might not be as well known that do give access and material content to people who are looking for that kind of content. So how do you access those? I deal with people more who find this information out after their partner has passed, right? So that's certainly the worst case scenario, is that you think that you have this wonderful relationship, and then it's not until after your partner passes suddenly that you start closing down accounts and then realize that he was living a double life. And that is very possible, because it's an addiction. So as someone who's struggling with it is going to hide out. So being able to identify those social media accounts. Then let's get into the phone. So again, conversations. The social media is a tough one, right? Because that is very, and I would say some of these websites are on the dark web. So again, if there's an inequity, a technological inequity within the marriage, that's going to be a hard one, right? Unless you hire a professional or or a company that can start doing private investigation work, which they do exist.
Right.
So that is probably that deepest layer of like, how do you do that? That's the most complicated one, unless you're surveilling. Now, the easiest one, so we'll go from the hardest to the easiest. So the hardest is social media. The easiest one, though, is, hey, honey. So if you have an iPhone, so on the iPhone, there is a feature on the iPhone. It's not on Android. I'm an Android user, so there's a little bit of a pain point there. Currently, it's called Legacy Contacts.
Yes.
So Legacy Contacts, so you would sit down with each other and say, hey, we should set up our legacy contacts with each other. Now, what Legacy Contact does, the iPhone has enabled, which is that you are now within, so you're going to go into settings into privacy, you're going to look up Legacy Contacts. Honey, I'm going to make you one of my legacy contacts, and you're going to make me your legacy contact. What that it does is that you will receive, once you add that person's name on there, and you should, best practice from a thanatologist standpoint is you should have at least 3 names on there.
Okay.
If your husband's in a car accident and passes away, and the phone dies with him, or it doesn't die, you do not have legal access to that phone unless you are on their legacy contact list. And I mean this, we've had situations where the parent of a 16-year-old, and then the 16-year-old unalived himself, because the parents were not on that 16-year-old's legacy contact. Now, the parent owns the phone. The parent could not get into that child's phone because he was not on the legacy contact.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter if you pay the bill, if you have the passcode, legally, you're not allowed. So I would say, let's put each other on each other's legacy contacts. Then that way, if the person does pass away, you would take you would be on their legacy contact, you would take the death certificate, and then that would give you legal access to their phone. Okay. So I recommend anybody who has an iPhone, you should do that irregardless.
Right. And with your children, what you're saying is if your children have that, needs to be on theirs, you set yourself up as a legacy contact.
Correct.
Okay.
And let me put my thanatologist hat on. So as a legacy contact, what I would do is Kirsten, if you were on my legacy contact, I would put you in there, and then you would immediately get an SMS, a text message with a QR code. And then I always recommend do a hard copy print of the QR code.
Okay.
And then it's called a crucial doc box. You're going to take that hard copy print of your QR code and put it in your crucial doc box.
Okay.
And that crucial doc box is like all the documentation you'll need end of life. If I died tomorrow and you were on my contact list, you would take that QR code and my death certificate and go to your phone provider. And then the phone provider would give you legal access to my phone information.
Okay.
Without that, you wouldn't be able to get there. So think about like multi-factor authentications, right? Right. So again, this is from a safety standpoint. Yeah. Honey, I need to be on your contact list because I need access to your phone. And then that leads into, oh, and by the way, if there's anything you need to clean up, do it now.
Do it now. Yeah.
Do it now. And then that might start stirring some of that emotional realization that he can't hide. It's not like the old days where, the pornography was a stack of magazines in the back of the closet. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
The pornography really does have that digital footprint that does not go away. So the third is the subscriptions, which is unfortunately a big deal because there is a financial impact there. And if they are starting to create this, and I have been dealing with clients who husbands have passed away and that there was pornography pervasive within the marriage that she didn't know about until after the husband passed away. And she didn't find out about it until she started going through his credit card. And lo and behold, he had a credit card that was designated just for these subscriptions.
Yep.
And there were dozens of them, reoccurring charges.
Yeah.
Now, luckily for her, she had access to his cell phone and to be able to do the multi-factor authentication. But what if his phone died with him?
Yeah.
She wouldn't have been able to shut down those accounts. And so she would have had that reminder of this reoccurring $5, $10 charges every month from these websites that are very disturbing.
How does this, even this conversation, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you have children in the home and you've discovered that your husband is looking at porn, maybe has some subscriptions, you've even discovered them by maybe they've appeared on a credit card bill that you've seen, something like that, which I've talked with women and this is how they found out it was on a credit card bill. So how does this becoming digitally savvy as far as looking at digital assets, how does she help protect her children, the finances, and help protect her children in this kind of a scenario?
So that protection piece, right, is if the husband is deep in their addiction and she finds out, he'll do one of two things. He'll either have a come to Jesus conversation,
right,
and seek help.
Mm-hmm. That's the best case scenario.
Best case. That's what we're hoping for.
That's what that's what we're hoping and praying.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
But the other side is they just burrow deeper into it. So then that's when she really, needs some professional support, both emotional support and digital support, right? Maybe she needs to hire, there are cybersecurity specialists out there that will specialize in this. Now, here's the challenge, though, is that there are data privacy laws out there that will work against her in order to uncover and protect. Here's my concern. If I was talking, if I was consulting you to consult with someone is, let's make sure that those sites are not child porn. Child pornography, then the police are coming into your house. And
that's a crime.
So if she is suspected of it, the first level is it child pornography? Because then that level of risk is a game changer. But let's say that it is not child pornography, but it is still a very pervasive addiction. And the partner is not willing to have those conversations. How to protect yourself is, to let them know that or let them know, right? Because they're just going to keep burrowing down. And then the idea is to, carefully start detaching in a safe way, right? Because they're in their addiction and they get desperate, to start looking for that emotional and technical support, to start finances. To me, I would want to start, allowing that person to start separating their finances in a way that will keep them safe. It's just like emotional abuse or physical abuse, right? It's like if the abuser is aggressive, you don't want them. You want to protect yourself.
So what you're saying is if she's suspicious of this and she's starting to see her finances get entangled and she's concerned about her children, she also needs to get some professional help
as she's starting to, right?
Right.
And to me, that help is going to come from emotional help, right? Because the relationship is not what she thought it was.
Right.
But she needs to be savvy and strategic.
Yes.
Right. And find a trusted advisor who has technology skill set to be able to allow her to start either financially untangling, right? Hey, honey, what is the password to our accounts?
So that brought up a good question.
Yeah.
And I saw this in some of the information you sent me, but passwords today, it's not like they used to be, years ago where everybody used the same password for every site. If you're doing that right now, if you're doing that right now, you need to stop that. That is really a way for your identity to be stolen. Like I know I have hundreds of passwords now for different sites, and I use a password manager. Are there password managers that you recommend that are easy to set up for someone who might feel very
vulnerable?
Yeah.
Vulnerable. So in working with my clients at Endeavo, where we do end of life planning, part of our process, it's called the final playbook. We basically build out a final playbook for a life well lived, right? The idea is like, let's just put everything into order. So what I always recommend, because building out a final playbook also means organizing the active, busy life you're building today, right? It doesn't mean you're dying. It just means like, just get your stuff in order because life happens. So what I recommend is I call it a hybrid approach. You have a physical and a digital, creating a physical password management or digital asset management system.
Okay.
So you're going to do both, right?
Okay.
So you're going to have things written down physically, and then you would put that in your crucial doc box, like a secured place. But then you, again, would try to find a digital password management system. Now, there are new, it's October 2024, right? So depending when we're talking, but there are more new solutions being launched today, especially in the death tech industry, which is where I work in the death tech, where you are going to be able to upload all of your digital assets onto a very secured platform. There's one I'm recommending called, and I can share with that information with you on your website, called Presidio. And I'll again share that with you on the website. Okay. So a website like Presidio, that's also a conversation. Hey, honey, we should put our digital assets on a joint account that, we have beneficiaries, identified executors. If we have children, we have trustees, trustors, right? So that starts that end of life planning conversation, is really letting them know we're in this together and that we need to start putting it together. So to answer your question, I always recommend both digital and physical, because what if passwords are changed? What if, there is a hack? I mean, how things look like today in 2024 with the advancement of AI and blockchain technology, 3 to 5 years, it's going to look very different. But we're kind of in a gap phase right now where we're transitioning, but we're not there yet. So digital and physical to create that physical system.
I love that, physical.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, no, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Well, I know there's so much more that we could be talking about, but if someone has more questions, like either they're looking at it going, I really need to do this whole end of life thing for whatever reason, or I really just need some more help understanding the digital assets and how do I protect myself because I've discovered whatever. How can somebody reach you?
I'm easy to find. You can, LinkedIn is a great place to find me. We have, and again, I'll leave it as an asset. We have a link, a platform where you can go and get your readiness assessment to see how ready you are at finalplaybook.com/quiz. I will, again, that could always change, but as of today, that's where they can find me. And then I'm easy to find on Niki Weiss Digital. If you Google Niki Weiss Digital Thanatologist, you will find all my social media platforms as well. It's ever changing. We need to be agile. We need to be thinking, in terms of the way we do things today will look very different tomorrow. But that addiction does not go away, right? Yeah. So it'll just continue to transform and morph into something that we're here to support. Yeah, in this ever-changing world.
Yeah, and the addiction, without intervention, without them actually making the decision to break the bond of the addiction, yes, that it is going to progress. But the good news is that there are ways to take care of a lot of these issues that women may not be very comfortable. This is not, like you said, it's not going away, and it's not something to be afraid of. It is something we have to learn. It's a new language. It's a new process. It's a new way of doing things. But I love the fact, Niki, that you are doing that. And I know you have a checklist that I will include with the show notes. Anybody that's listening to this can get you. And I'll also include the links that she's given us in the show notes here so that you can reach out to Niki and just tap into the wealth of knowledge. But I will tell you, as someone who is 17 years down the road in recovery, my husband and I do have a lot of this already in place, where we share a password manager. We share access to everything in the digital space. I know his accounts, he knows my accounts. And I know I have access to all of the financial records, which most of them now are online. And so if you're not familiar with that, you've got to get familiar with it. We're very careful to be able to be transparent in that area. And yes, the conversations have to occur, but we can approach them from the aspect of safety, of being able to take care of you. If for some reason you were injured and couldn't communicate, I can take care of your stuff. You can take care of my stuff. It's a two-way street here. So, Niki, thank you so much. Is there any last thing that you would like to just last words of wisdom for women who are just trying to navigate this digital footprint?
It is a new way of being. Embrace it. There's support to empower you. Do not let your tech savvy husband do circles around your head. We are here as women to support, and we understand what you're going through. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share this information and allow people to know that they're not alone. And buckle up, though, because buckle up.
Yes, it will take some time, but you are not alone. And I love the fact that you said that, Niki. You are not alone in this recovery process, in this trauma process. You are never alone. That's one of the things I want women to always hear is there are resources available. If you don't know where to start, you can reach out to me at my website. The links are going to be here on this, as well as questions about the digital space. Go to Niki, get her expertise. Thank you so much for being with me today, Niki. It's been great, and we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much.